Jasmine's designer dress dripped with cola, her skin burning from the ice. Through tears, she caught the flight attendant's smirk. Then the plane doors opened. Marcus Taylor, airline CEO and Jasmine's husband, stood frozen at the entrance. The flight attendant's smile vanished instantly. Before we dive into this shocking story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you're ready to witness how justice was served when this flight attendant picked the wrong passenger to discriminate against. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. The morning sun filtered through the bedroom curtains as Jasmine Reynolds carefully packed the last of her design portfolios into her genuine leather briefcase. Each page represented countless hours of work, creativity, and determination as one of the few successful Black fashion designers. Breaking barriers in the predominantly white industry, Jasmine had learned to pack her confidence alongside her sketches. "You sure you've got everything?" Marcus Taylor asked, entering the bedroom with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. His tall frame and confident posture reflected his position as the CEO of Sky High Airlines, though few would guess it from his humble demeanor at home. Jasmine accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. "I think so. This pitch to Chicago retailers could change everything for my brand. I've been preparing for months." Marcus set his mug down and pulled something from his pocket. "I have a surprise for you." He handed her a first-class ticket on his airline. "I know you usually prefer to fly under the radar, but I want you comfortable for this important trip." Jasmine hesitated, turning the ticket over in her hands. "Are the flight attendants going to know I'm your wife?" Marcus shook his head. "No, this is completely anonymous. I've specifically arranged it that way. You'll be treated like any other first-class passenger." He didn't mention that this was partly a quality control check. Marcus believed in experiencing his airline as customers did, not as the CEO's family receiving special treatment. "You know how these flights can be for me," Jasmine said softly, memories of past discriminatory experiences clouding her excitement. Last year, a flight attendant had repeatedly questioned her first-class ticket until a white businessman had intervened. 6 months before that, she'd been asked to move from her assigned seat because a white couple wanted to sit together. "Times are changing, Jazz, and I'm making sure my airline is leading that change." Marcus wrapped his arms around her. "Besides, I'll be arriving later today on another flight. Surprise board meeting that no one knows about yet." The doorbell rang, interrupting their moment. Jasmine's assistant Kiara arrived with last-minute portfolio adjustments. "These new color swatches just came in, and they're perfect for the summer collection," Kiara explained, spreading fabric samples across the kitchen island. "Your vision for inclusive sizing with these materials is going to revolutionize the industry." As they reviewed the changes, Jasmine's phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. "Mom, I was just about to call you. Baby girl, I wanted to wish you good luck today." Her mother's warm voice came through. "Your daddy would be so proud seeing what you've built from nothing." Jasmine swallowed hard, thinking of her father who had worked 3 jobs to put her through fashion school. "I know, Mom. Don't let anyone make you feel small." Her mother continued. "Remember what we always say. Take up space." Jasmine finished their family mantra. "I belong wherever I stand." After the call ended, Marcus helped load Jasmine's bags into the waiting car. "Text me when you land," he said, kissing her goodbye. "Everything will go smoothly." The drive to the airport was quick, but Jasmine's mind raced with thoughts of her journey. From sewing clothes for her dolls in their small apartment to creating designs that had been featured in major fashion magazines, she had overcome countless obstacles. Each no had only fueled her determination. At the airport check-in counter, Jasmine noticed the subtle change in the attendant's expression. When she presented her first-class ticket, the slight double-take, the unnecessary verification, the tone shift. "Is there a problem?" Jasmine asked calmly. No problem," the attendant replied quickly, but her eyes told a different story. "Enjoy your flight, Ms. Reynolds." Jasmine took her boarding pass, her mother's words echoing in her mind. "Take up space. I belong wherever I stand." As she walked toward security, Jasmine mentally reviewed her presentation. The Chicago trip represented an opportunity to get her designs into major department stores nationwide. Success would mean economic empowerment not just for her, but for the predominantly black and female staff she had hired from her old neighborhood. She texted Marcus, "On my way through security. Love you." His reply came instantly, "You're going to shine today. Those retailers won't know what hit them." Jasmine smiled, tucking her phone away. With her husband flying in later and her portfolio perfect, what could possibly go wrong? Jasmine arrived at the gate 30 minutes before boarding began. She sat near the window, reviewing her presentation one last time while observing the gate area filling with passengers. The boarding announcement came right on schedule, with first-class passengers invited to board first. Gathering her belongings, Jasmine approached the gate with her first-class ticket in hand. The gate agent smiled brightly at the elderly white couple in front of her, engaging in friendly conversation about their destination. When Jasmine stepped forward, the same agent's smile noticeably diminished. "Ticket, please," she requested, flatly examining Jasmine's boarding pass with unnecessary scrutiny. "Do you understand this is for first-class boarding only?" "Yes, I'm aware," Jasmine replied evenly, maintaining her composure. After a moment of deliberation, the agent reluctantly returned the boarding pass. "Very well." Jasmine walked down the jet bridge, mentally preparing herself for the flight ahead. She had experienced this kind of treatment before, but it never became easier to bear. Stepping onto the plane, she was greeted by flight attendant Vanessa Cooper, a blonde woman with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Vanessa was warmly welcoming the passengers ahead of Jasmine, offering to help with coats and directing them to their seats with cheerful banter. "Welcome aboard," Vanessa said tersely when Jasmine approached, her smile evaporating. No offer of assistance, no friendly conversation, just a cursory glance at Jasmine's ticket. "2A is on your right." Jasmine found her window seat and stored her portfolio case carefully in the overhead compartment. As she settled in, she noticed Vanessa's demeanor transform again as she greeted a white businessman with radiant warmth. "Mr. Peterson, so lovely to see you again. Can I get you a pre-flight beverage, your usual bourbon?" From across the aisle, Jasmine caught the eye of another black passenger, an older gentleman who gave her a subtle nod of recognition. The unspoken communication between them acknowledged their shared experience. As first class continued to fill, Jasmine overheard Vanessa whispering to another flight attendant while looking in her direction. "They're letting anyone in first class these days," Vanessa muttered. "These people probably don't even know what to do with the amenities." The other attendant glanced uncomfortably at Jasmine, but said nothing to contradict Vanessa. Jasmine took a deep breath, remembering similar incidents throughout her travels. The time she was asked to show her ticket 3 times on one flight, the occasion when a flight attendant had suggested she was in the wrong seat despite her ticket, clearly showing otherwise, the countless moments of being served last, if at all. Once boarding completed, Vanessa began offering pre-flight drinks to first-class passengers, methodically working through each row. When she reached Jasmine's row, she served the white man beside her, but moved on without acknowledging Jasmine. "Excuse me," Jasmine called politely. "Could I have some water, please?" Vanessa turned back with visible reluctance. "I'll be back with water for everyone shortly." 10 minutes passed. Drinks were refreshed for several passengers, but Jasmine's request remained unfulfilled. She raised her hand again. "I'm still waiting for that water." "We're quite busy with boarding," Vanessa replied sharply. "Though boarding had completed minutes ago, you'll have to be patient." The gentleman across the aisle, who had been observing the situation, cleared his throat. "I believe the lady asked for water some time ago, and you are?" Vanessa asked coldly. "Dr. Wilson," he replied. "And I've noticed the discrepancy in service." Vanessa's face tightened. "I'll get to everyone." "Doctor." Jasmine opened her portfolio, attempting to focus on her presentation rather than the building tension. An elderly white woman seated nearby had been watching the interactions with growing concern. When Vanessa wasn't looking, she leaned slightly toward Jasmine. "That's not right, dear," she whispered. "Not right at all." The plane encountered turbulence as it prepared for takeoff. causing Vanessa to steady herself near Jasmine's row. As she regained her balance, water from the cup she was carrying spilled directly onto Jasmine's open portfolio. "Oh," Vanessa exclaimed, making no move to help as water soaked into the carefully prepared pages. Turbulence. These things happen. Jasmine quickly closed the portfolio, limiting the damage, and reached for napkins from her bag. "Could I get some assistance?" "Please. We're preparing for takeoff," Vanessa replied dismissively. "Seatbelts must be fastened now." Once the plane was airborne and the seatbelt sign turned off, Jasmine requested to speak with the lead flight attendant. A middle-aged man named Robert appeared moments later. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, glancing between Jasmine and Vanessa. Jasmine explained the situation calmly, detailing the pattern of neglect and the water incident. Robert listened with a neutral expression before responding. "Turbulence can be unpredictable, and our staff are managing multiple priorities during boarding. I'm sure no one intended any disrespect." "That's not what," Jasmine began. "We'll make sure you get prompt service for the remainder of the flight," Robert interrupted, effectively dismissing her concerns while standing protectively near Vanessa. "Is there anything else?" The message was clear. Jasmine's experience wasn't being taken seriously. As Robert walked away, Vanessa shot Jasmine a smug look before continuing her duties, deliberately avoiding eye contact with both Jasmine and Dr. Wilson for the next several minutes. Jasmine turned to look out the window, fighting the familiar feeling of being both hypervisible and invisible simultaneously. She belonged in this seat as much as anyone, yet was being treated as an unwelcome intruder. The damaged portfolio pages represented more than just water stains. They symbolized the constant barriers placed in her path. Taking out her phone, she texted Kiara, "Flight's challenging. Reviewing backup presentation files now." Then she silently reminded herself, "Take up space. I belong wherever I stand." 2 hours into the flight, the atmosphere in first class had grown increasingly tense. Jasmine had received minimal service, with Vanessa finding every possible excuse to avoid her section. When service was unavoidable, it came with cold efficiency, devoid of the warmth extended to other passengers. "Have you noticed how she hasn't looked you in the eye once?" Dr. Wilson whispered across the aisle during a lull in service. "I've been counting. 27 interactions with passengers, 0 respectful ones with you." Jasmine nodded slightly, keeping her voice low. "Unfortunately, this isn't my first experience like this." As Vanessa passed by with a tray of refreshments for other passengers, Jasmine overheard her speaking to another flight attendant near the galley. "I don't think she belongs here," Vanessa said, not bothering to lower her voice completely. "Probably used points or got upgraded by mistake. Or maybe someone else's ticket. If you know what I mean." The implication was clear, and Jasmine felt her cheeks burn with indignation. The suggestion that she had somehow stolen a ticket rather than legitimately purchased first-class passage was a familiar racist trope she'd encountered before. When meal service began, the flight attendants distributed pre-ordered special meals first. Jasmine had requested a vegetarian option when booking, but when meals were delivered, everyone else received their selections while she was skipped entirely. "Excuse me," Jasmine called as Vanessa passed by again. "I pre-ordered a vegetarian meal." Vanessa paused, looking annoyed at being addressed. "Let me check the manifest." After a cursory glance at her tablet, she shook her head. "No record of that. We're out of extra meals, but I can offer you some snacks later." "I specifically selected it when booking," Jasmine insisted, keeping her voice level and professional. "Could you please check again?" The airline's policy guarantees accommodations for dietary requests made in advance. Vanessa's expression hardened at being challenged with company policy. "I understand how our airline works. If your meal isn't listed, there's nothing I can do. Perhaps there was user error during booking." The condescension in her tone was unmistakable, suggesting Jasmine didn't understand how to properly book a flight. "I'd like to see the manifest myself, please," Jasmine requested. "Passengers aren't authorized to view flight documents," Vanessa replied quickly. "It's a security protocol." Dr. Wilson, who had been listening to the exchange, interjected. "I've been flying with this airline for 20 years. and I've never heard of that protocol. Perhaps we could speak with the captain about this service issue?" Vanessa turned to him with barely concealed hostility. "The captain is busy flying the plane, sir. I suggest you stay out of matters that don't concern you. Discrimination concerns everyone," Dr. Wilson replied calmly. Other passengers were now watching the exchange with varying degrees of interest and discomfort. Jasmine, recognizing the situation was escalating, decided to document the interaction. She discreetly activated the voice recorder on her phone. "I'm simply requesting the meal I ordered according to company policy," Jasmine stated clearly for the record. "I would appreciate being treated with the same respect as other passengers in this cabin." "No one is disrespecting you," Vanessa said, her voice taking on a performative customer service tone. "We simply don't have record of your special request. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to serve the other passengers." As Vanessa walked away, the plane hit a patch of turbulence. Using this as cover, Vanessa deliberately bumped into Jasmine's shoulder while steadying herself. Hard enough to be intentional, but subtle enough to claim as accidental if challenged. Returning to her seat, Jasmine examined her portfolio again. The water damage from earlier had warped several key presentation pages, particularly affecting the fabric swatches that were central to her pitch. She would need to rely more heavily on her digital backup, which lacked the tactile impact of the physical samples. 5 minutes later, Vanessa's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder that flight attendant instructions must be followed for everyone's safety and comfort. Respect for crew members is not only a courtesy, but a requirement for air travel. Thank you for your cooperation." Throughout this announcement, Vanessa maintained direct eye contact with Jasmine, making it clear who the message was intended for. Have you ever been in a situation where someone in authority abused their power against you? Comment number 1 if you've experienced discrimination while just trying to go about your day. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves equal treatment regardless of their skin color. And subscribe to see more stories of justice being served to those who discriminate. Now, what would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Would you stay quiet or stand up for yourself? And what do you think happens next when this flight attendant decides to take things even further? Keep watching to find out. The tension continued to build as the flight progressed. Jasmine tried to focus on reviewing her presentation on her tablet, but found it increasingly difficult to concentrate amid the hostile environment. She noticed several passengers glancing in her direction, some with curiosity, others with unwarranted suspicion based on Vanessa's behavior. Jasmine raised her hand, attempting once more to get proper service. "Excuse me, I'd like to speak with the captain about the treatment I've received." Vanessa approached with visible annoyance. "The captain is occupied with flying responsibilities. I'm the lead cabin attendant for this section, so any concerns should be directed to me." "The issue is with your service," Jasmine explained calmly. "I'd like to speak with your superior, that would be the captain, who is busy ensuring your safety," Vanessa replied with exaggerated patience. "I can take a message to be delivered after we land." As Vanessa walked away, Jasmine overheard her murmuring to nearby passengers. "Some people just want special treatment. Makes everything difficult for everyone else." The businessman seated beside Jasmine shifted uncomfortably, now keeping a noticeable distance as though her presence had somehow become problematic. Other passengers began giving her sidelong glances. Vanessa's narrative was spreading through the cabin, painting Jasmine as a difficult passenger rather than someone experiencing discrimination. Needing to vent her frustration, Jasmine texted her assistant Kiara while the plane's Wi-Fi was functioning. "This flight is a nightmare. The attendant keeps ignoring me and damaged my portfolio. Can't wait to land and see Marcus. That's terrible." Kiara replied, "Does she know who your husband is?" Jasmine typed back, "No, and I'm not using that card. But honestly, when the CEO's wife is treated this way, imagine what regular black passengers endure." As she pressed send, Jasmine realized Vanessa was standing nearby, close enough to have glimpsed part of her screen. The flight attendant's expression changed subtly, a mix of confusion and reassessment, though she clearly hadn't caught enough details to understand the full context. When drink service came around again, Jasmine decided to make a simple, reasonable request to test the service level. "Could I please have a cola with no ice?" she asked politely when Vanessa reluctantly approached her row. Of course, Vanessa replied with a tight smile. Minutes later, Vanessa returned with a glass filled to the brim with ice and just a splash of cola. She placed it on Jasmine's tray with deliberate carelessness, causing some to slosh over the side. "Your cola," she announced before attempting to move on. "Excuse me," Jasmine called, keeping her voice measured despite her growing frustration. "I specifically requested no ice." Vanessa turned back slowly. "Did you? I must have misheard." "You didn't mishear," Jasmine stated firmly. "And this is part of a pattern of substandard service you've provided throughout this flight." Vanessa's professional veneer cracked slightly. "I've been nothing but accommodating to all passengers." "That's not accurate," Dr. Wilson interjected from across the aisle. "I've observed the discrepancy in service myself." "I wasn't speaking to you, sir," Vanessa snapped before turning back to Jasmine. "If you're unhappy with the beverage, I can take it back." "What I'm unhappy with is being treated differently from other passengers," Jasmine replied, her patience wearing thin. "I've been ignored, my meal request was lost, my materials were damaged without apology, and now this. I'd like you to acknowledge the pattern." Something in Vanessa's expression hardened. "I think you're imagining things. Perhaps you're not accustomed to first-class travel and its normal procedures." The condescension in her tone was unmistakable. Several nearby passengers shifted uncomfortably, sensing the mounting tension. "I travel frequently," Jasmine responded. "This isn't about familiarity with procedures. It's about basic respect and equal treatment." "I treat all passengers equally," Vanessa insisted, her voice rising slightly. "If you feel otherwise, that's your perception." As their exchange continued, the plane hit another patch of turbulence. Vanessa appeared to lose her balance, stumbling forward toward Jasmine. What happened next was no accident, with deliberate precision disguised as a loss of control. Vanessa tilted the entire tray of ice and cola directly onto Jasmine's lap. The cold liquid soaked through Jasmine's designer dress immediately, the ice cubes sliding painfully against her skin. Her tablet, which had been on the tray, was splashed as well, along with the remaining portfolio materials she'd been reviewing. Jasmine gasped from the shock of the cold liquid, jumping to her feet instinctively. "Oh my!" Vanessa exclaimed with theatrical concern that didn't match the satisfied glint in her eyes. "The turbulence! What an unfortunate accident. You should really stay seated with your seatbelt fastened during rough air." The deliberate nature of the action was clear to Jasmine and several observers, including Dr. Wilson, but Vanessa maintained her facade of innocence, loudly proclaiming, "These things happen during flight. Let me get you some napkins." But instead of immediately helping, Vanessa turned to other passengers first. "Please remain seated, everyone. Just a small accident due to turbulence." As cola dripped from Jasmine's ruined dress and damaged materials, she caught Vanessa's expression, a fleeting but unmistakable smirk of satisfaction. That confirmed what Jasmine already knew. This was no accident, but the culmination of the attendant's escalating hostility. Jasmine stood in stunned silence as the cold cola soaked through her designer dress, staining the delicate fabric and dripping onto her shoes. The ice cubes that had slid into her lap were now melting, creating an uncomfortable wetness that drew stares from surrounding passengers. Her carefully prepared portfolio materials lay ruined on the tray table, ink running as the liquid seeped through the pages. "Sit down, please," Vanessa instructed with mock concern. For safety reasons, during turbulence, Jasmine remained standing. "I need napkins or towels, please. We're limited on napkins right now," Vanessa replied, making no move to assist. "I'll check if we have any to spare after I secure the cabin." Dr. Wilson unbuttoned his suit jacket and removed a crisp handkerchief from his pocket, offering it to Jasmine. "Here, please take this." "Thank you," Jasmine said gratefully, using it to blot the worst of the liquid from her tablet screen. "This is unacceptable," Dr. Wilson said, addressing Vanessa directly. "Your behavior has been consistently unprofessional. I'll be filing a formal complaint upon landing." Vanessa's expression hardened. "Sir, I've asked passengers to remain seated. If you continue to interfere with cabin duties, I'll need to report disruptive behavior to the captain." The threat hung in the air as Jasmine gathered her damaged belongings. "I need to use the restroom to clean up," she said, maintaining her dignity despite the humiliating situation. "The seatbelt sign is illuminated," Vanessa replied, though it clearly wasn't. "You'll have to wait. The sign is off," another passenger pointed out. Vanessa shot them a look before reluctantly stepping aside. "Make it quick. We'll be experiencing more turbulence soon." Jasmine made her way to the first-class lavatory, feeling the stares of other passengers following her. Once inside the small bathroom, she finally had a moment of privacy to assess the damage. Her cream-colored designer dress, chosen specifically for the important meeting with retailers, was ruined. Large brown stains spread across the fabric, and no amount of blotting with paper towels would salvage it. More distressing were her presentation materials. The portfolio containing fabric swatches, design sketches, and production specifications was soaked through in places, rendering weeks of preparation damaged. Jasmine felt tears of frustration threatening to fall, but took deep breaths to maintain her composure. Through the bathroom door, she could hear Vanessa's voice, not bothering to keep quiet. "Some people just don't know how to handle themselves in first class," Vanessa was saying to someone, "acting entitled when they clearly don't belong here." Another voice, barely audible, seemed to express concern. "Just an accident," Vanessa responded dismissively. "Happens all the time with turbulence. Not my fault if some passengers overreact." Jasmine took out her phone with shaking hands and called Marcus. "Hey, babe." He answered cheerfully. "How's the flight, Marcus?" Jasmine's voice cracked slightly. "It's been awful. The flight attendant has been treating me terribly the entire time, and she just accidentally spilled an entire cola on me and my materials." "What?" Marcus's tone shifted immediately to concern. "Tell me exactly what happened." Jasmine quickly recounted the series of incidents, from being ignored during service to the deliberate drink spill. "This is completely unacceptable," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I wasn't going to tell you this, but I'm actually at the connection airport right now. My surprise inspection was planned for when your flight arrives in 30 minutes. You're already there?" Jasmine asked, relief washing over her. "Yes, and I'll be waiting at the gate when you land. Don't reveal who I am yet. I want to see how this plays out." After ending the call, Jasmine composed herself as best she could and exited the lavatory. To her shock, when she returned to her row, she found her personal items had been moved and her tray table folded up. "Excuse me, but my things were here," she said to Vanessa, who was nearby. "You abandoned your seat." Vanessa replied, "We needed to clear the area to serve other passengers. Your items are stowed overhead. I didn't abandon anything. I went to clean up after you spilled a drink on me," Jasmine countered. Aware of the passengers watching the exchange, "You were gone for quite some time," Vanessa said with feigned patience. "Airline policy requires us to secure unattended items." Several passengers had begun recording the interaction discreetly with their phones. Sensing the situation was escalating beyond normal in-flight tension, the elderly white woman who had shown Jasmine silent support earlier caught her eye and gave an encouraging nod. As Jasmine reclaimed her seat and attempted to retrieve her belongings from the overhead bin, Vanessa's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Chicago O'Hare International Airport. At this time, all passengers must return to their seats with seatbelts fastened, tray tables stowed, and all electronic devices powered off." Jasmine noticed the pointed stare Vanessa directed at her while making this announcement. "Please ensure compliance with these instructions, as some passengers may need a reminder about proper in-flight etiquette." The public shaming was unmistakable, and Jasmine felt her cheeks burn with humiliation and anger. Several passengers glanced her way, some with sympathy, others with the judgment Vanessa had been cultivating throughout the flight. The elderly woman beside Jasmine leaned over slightly. "Dear, when we land, I'd like to give you my contact information. What happened today wasn't right, and I'd be willing to say so officially." "Thank you," Jasmine whispered, touched by the simple act of kindness amid the hostility. As the plane began its descent, Jasmine stared out the window at the approaching Chicago skyline, her thoughts torn between the ruined presentation materials, her stained clothing, and the knowledge that Marcus was waiting at the gate. For the first time since the flight began, she felt a small measure of hope that justice might be possible. The plane began its final approach to Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Banking gently through scattered clouds, Jasmine sat rigidly in her seat, acutely aware of the stares from fellow passengers and the cold dampness of her cola-stained dress clinging uncomfortably to her skin. The tablet in her hands displayed the backup presentation she would now have to rely on entirely, the screen still sticky from the spilled drink. Across the aisle, Dr. Wilson offered an encouraging nod. Throughout the flight, he had become an unexpected ally, his quiet dignity and willingness to speak up providing Jasmine with moral support during the escalating situation. As the aircraft descended, the elderly white woman seated nearby discreetly passed Jasmine a folded business card. "Martha Livingston," she whispered. "I was a flight attendant for 30 years before retiring. What happened to you today goes against everything we were taught about service and human decency. Call me if you need a witness." Jasmine slipped the card into her purse with a grateful smile, touched by the woman's kindness. The intercom crackled to life as Vanessa began making rival announcements. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're now on final approach to Chicago O'Hare. Local time is to 15 p.m. with clear skies and temperatures around 73 degrees. For connecting passengers, flight to 142 to Atlanta will depart from gate C-17. Jasmine knew her connection to meet with retailers was at Terminal B, not C. When Vanessa continued listing gates, she deliberately provided Jasmine with incorrect information, a final attempt to disrupt her journey. Jasmine's phone vibrated with an incoming text. Glancing down, she saw Marcus's message. "Waiting at your rival gate with some colleagues. Terminal B, gate 22. Don't worry about the connection information she just gave. It's wrong." A small smile played at Jasmine's lips. Of course Marcus would know exactly where her flight was arriving. As CEO, he had access to all flight information, and he'd clearly been monitoring the situation. The plane touched down with a slight bounce, tires screeching against the runway before settling into a smooth taxi toward the terminal. As passengers prepared to deplane, many began standing despite the illuminated seatbelt sign, eager to retrieve their belongings and exit after the tense flight. "Please remain seated until we reach the gate and the seatbelt sign is turned off," Vanessa announced, though the standard instruction was delivered with a pointed stare at Jasmine. Once the aircraft was securely at the gate and the seatbelt sign dinged off, passengers rose en masse. Several nearby passengers offered Jasmine sympathetic glances as they noted her stained clothing, some whispering words of encouragement as they passed. "That wasn't right. What happened to you?" one woman murmured. "I recorded part of it," a college-aged passenger added quietly, "if you need it." As Jasmine stood to retrieve her carry-on from the overhead compartment, Vanessa deliberately positioned herself in the aisle, blocking access. "Please allow other passengers to deplane first," she instructed with false politeness. "We need to maintain order." She was in first class, Dr. Wilson pointed out. First class typically deplanes first. Vanessa shot him a cold look. "Sir, I'm managing the deplaning process. Please follow instructions. You're obstructing a passenger who has every right to access her belongings." Dr. Wilson replied firmly, "Your behavior has been discriminatory throughout this flight, and now you're continuing it during deplaning." Vanessa's professional mask slipped momentarily. "I've had enough of your accusations. I'll be reporting both of you for disruptive behavior. Security might need to have a word with you at the gate." The threat hung in the air as Jasmine finally managed to reach around Vanessa to retrieve her bag. The flight attendant made no move to assist, despite helping several other passengers with their luggage. As first-class passengers began moving toward the exit, Jasmine overheard Vanessa speaking to another flight attendant just loudly enough to be heard. "People like her won't be flying first class on my flights again. I'll make sure of it." The other flight attendant looked uncomfortable, but remained silent, complicit in her inaction. The aircraft door was opened, and Vanessa took her position beside it, putting on a brilliant smile that contrasted sharply with her previous demeanor. She stood proudly at the exit, preparing to bid farewell to the deplaning passengers with the professional courtesy she had selectively withheld throughout the flight. Have you ever witnessed someone being discriminatory, only to put on a fake smile when authority arrives? Comment number 1 if you've seen people change their behavior when they think they might be caught. Like this video if you believe accountability is essential in fighting racism. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice being served. What do you think is about to happen when Vanessa sees who's waiting at the gate? Do you think she'll still be smiling when she realizes who Jasmine really is? Stay tuned to see the moment everything changes. The jet bridge connected to the aircraft door with a soft thud, and Vanessa Cooper positioned herself at the exit, her practiced customer service smile firmly in place. She nodded politely to the first few passengers as they deplaned. "Thank you for flying with us today," she recited mechanically. "Have a wonderful stay in Chicago." Jasmine stood several passengers back in the deplaning line, her stained dress drawing curious glances. Dr. Wilson had insisted on letting her go ahead of him, a small gesture of respect after the indignity she had endured during the flight. As the line moved forward, Jasmine caught her first glimpse through the aircraft door into the jet bridge. Her heart leaped. There, waiting just beyond the threshold, stood Marcus Taylor in his full CEO attire, tailored navy suit with the distinctive Sky High Airlines pin on his lapel, surrounded by several executive team members holding tablets and clipboards. This was clearly the surprise inspection Marcus had mentioned, timed perfectly with her arrival. None of the flight crew had been notified in advance, ensuring an authentic assessment of service quality. "Welcome to Chicago," Vanessa said to the passenger ahead of Jasmine, her smile wide and voice cheerful, the polar opposite of how she had behaved throughout the flight. "We hope you enjoyed your—" Her words cut off abruptly as Jasmine stepped forward to exit the aircraft. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Jasmine saw the flash of recognition in Vanessa's face. Not recognition of who Jasmine was, but acknowledgement of how she had treated her. Then Jasmine stepped through the doorway, and Marcus's face lit up with a warm smile. "Honey," he called, stepping forward to embrace her. "I was just telling the team I'd surprise you at the gate." Vanessa's practiced smile froze on her face as the word honey echoed in the jet bridge. Her eyes darted between Jasmine and Marcus, the company pin on his lapel suddenly coming into sharp focus. "Mr. Taylor," one of the executives said, "we weren't expecting you to personally greet the arriving passengers. Small change of plans." Marcus replied, his arm still around Jasmine's shoulders. "My wife happened to be on this flight." The color drained from Vanessa's face as the implications sank in. Behind Jasmine, several passengers who had witnessed the in-flight discrimination began taking out their phones, sensing a dramatic moment unfolding. "Your wife?" Vanessa stammered, her voice barely audible. Marcus nodded, his expression still pleasant though his eyes had hardened as he noticed Jasmine's stained dress. "Yes, my wife, Jasmine Reynolds Taylor." He looked more closely at Jasmine's appearance, his brow furrowing. "What happened to your dress? And why do you look so upset?" Before Jasmine could answer, Dr. Wilson stepped forward. "Sir, if I may, I witnessed your flight attendant deliberately pour a full cola over your wife, after subjecting her to discriminatory treatment throughout the entire flight." The elderly woman, Martha Livingston, had also deplaned and added, "I observed the same, Mr. Taylor. In my 30 years as a flight attendant before retiring, I've never seen such unprofessional conduct." Other passengers began nodding in agreement, some holding up phones indicating they had recorded portions of the incidents. Vanessa's face had now completely lost its professional mask, replaced by mounting panic. "Mr. Taylor, there's been a misunderstanding. There was turbulence, and accidents happened during." "There was minimal turbulence," interrupted the captain, who had emerged from the cockpit upon hearing the commotion. "Nothing that would cause a full drink to be spilled unless it was intentional." Marcus's expression had transformed from confusion to controlled anger. He turned to one of the executives beside him. "Patricia, please pull the cabin security footage from this flight immediately." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Cabin footage, yes," Marcus confirmed. "All our first-class cabins have security cameras. For passenger safety, standard protocol, though not advertised." He turned to another executive. "James, please escort Ms. Cooper to the terminal office while we review the situation." As passengers continued to deplane, many were now openly filming the unfolding scene. The narrative had spread quickly through the cabin. The flight attendant, who had discriminated against a black woman, had unknowingly done so to the CEO's wife. Jasmine touched Marcus's arm gently. "I recorded some of it on my phone," she said quietly, "and my portfolio materials were damaged when she spilled the drink." Marcus nodded grimly before addressing the gathering crowd of executives and onlookers. "Let's move this discussion to the private conference room in the terminal. Dr. Wilson, Mrs. Livingston, would you be willing to provide your accounts of what transpired?" Both nodded their agreement as James led a visibly shaken Vanessa toward the terminal. Her earlier confidence completely evaporated as they walked through the jet bridge. Other passengers approached Jasmine with words of support and offers to share their recordings of the incidents. The college student who had mentioned recording the confrontation earlier stepped forward. "I got almost the whole drink incident on video," he said, showing Jasmine his phone screen. "She definitely did it on purpose. You can see her looking right at you before she lost her balance. I'd be happy to send you the file." In the span of minutes, the power dynamic had completely reversed. Vanessa, who had wielded her authority to humiliate Jasmine, now found herself facing the consequences of her actions, exposed before the very company leadership she had unwittingly defied. As they entered the terminal, Marcus kept his arm protectively around Jasmine, his expression a mixture of concern for her and determination to address the situation. The executive team followed closely behind, tablets already displaying the first images from the cabin security footage. "I'm so sorry you experienced this," Marcus whispered to Jasmine as they walked, "but it ends today." The Sky High Airlines terminal conference room was designed for executive meetings. With its polished oak table, leather chairs, and panoramic views of the airfield. Today, however, it served as the venue for an impromptu disciplinary hearing that had the airline's senior leadership team on high alert. Marcus Taylor sat at the head of the table, his usual warm demeanor replaced by the focused intensity that had helped him rise to CEO. To his right sat Jasmine, still in her cola-stained dress, but carrying herself with dignity. Dr. Wilson and Martha Livingston had been invited to join as witnesses, seated alongside several passengers who had volunteered their testimonies. Across from them, Vanessa Cooper sat rigid in her chair, flanked by Patricia Chen, the airline's head of human resources, and Robert Sullivan, the lead flight attendant who had dismissed Jasmine's earlier complaints. "Let's review what we know," Marcus began, his voice measured but firm. "Patricia has compiled the security footage, passenger statements, and preliminary incident reports." Patricia nodded, tapping her tablet to project video onto the wall screen. "We have multiple camera angles from the first-class cabin. I've created a timeline of incidents reported by Ms. Reynolds-Taylor and corroborated by witnesses." The room watched in silence as the footage played, clearly showing Vanessa's pattern of behavior, ignoring Jasmine's requests, while promptly serving other passengers, the accidental portfolio water spill, and most damning, the deliberate cola incident, where Vanessa could be seen shifting her weight to intentionally dump the drink. There was no significant turbulence at that moment, Patricia noted, highlighting the stability of other items in the frame. The flight data recorder confirmed smooth conditions. Vanessa stared at the floor, unable to watch her actions replayed. Before the assembled group, "I never meant," she began. "Please wait until we've completed the review," Marcus interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. The footage continued, showing Vanessa's smirk immediately after the spill, her blocking Jasmine's access to the overhead bin, and her whispered comments to other crew members while gesturing toward Jasmine. When the video ended, Marcus turned to Jasmine. "Would you like to share your statement?" Jasmine straightened in her chair, her voice clear and composed. "I want to be very direct about what happened today. From the moment I boarded, Flight Attendant Cooper treated me differently from other passengers. When I requested the same services others received automatically, I was ignored, dismissed, or treated with contempt." She recounted each incident, methodically, without emotional embellishment, allowing the facts to speak for themselves. "What I experienced today was not about poor service. It was about being seen as less deserving of respect and dignity because of my race. The damage to my presentation materials and clothing was the physical manifestation of that disrespect, but the emotional impact of being humiliated in a public space is equally significant." Dr. Wilson spoke next, his distinguished voice carrying the weight of his observations. "As a frequent flyer with this airline for over 20 years, I was appalled by what I witnessed. The discrepancy in service was blatant and unmistakable." Martha Livingston added her perspective as a former flight attendant. "In my 3 decades of service, we were trained to treat all passengers with equal respect. What I observed today violated every principle of professional conduct in the industry." Other passengers provided similar accounts, some sharing additional video clips from their phones that further documented Vanessa's behavior. Robert Sullivan, the lead flight attendant, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I was made aware of an issue but didn't witness the initial interactions myself. I should have investigated more thoroughly." Patricia opened a file on her tablet. "I've reviewed Ms. Cooper's personnel record. There are 3 previous complaints noting similar behavior toward passengers of color, though none as thoroughly documented as today's incidents. All were dismissed due to insufficient evidence or classified as misunderstandings." Marcus's expression darkened at this revelation. "And these were never escalated to senior leadership. They were handled at the regional management level," Patricia confirmed, "which is technically protocol, but I find the pattern concerning." Finally, Marcus turned to Vanessa. "Ms. Cooper, do you have anything to say in response to what we've seen and heard?" Vanessa lifted her gaze, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. "I want to clarify that I never intended any racial bias in my actions. The service issues were due to a busy flight and miscommunications. The spill was truly an accident caused by turbulence. The evidence directly contradicts those claims," Marcus stated flatly. "The footage clearly shows intentional actions on your part." "Everyone makes mistakes," Vanessa insisted, her voice taking on a defensive edge. "I've been with this airline for 8 years with an otherwise exemplary record. This is being blown out of proportion because of who Ms. Reynolds happens to be married to." Marcus leaned forward. "Let me be absolutely clear, Ms. Cooper. If this had happened to any passenger on any flight, the outcome would be the same. The fact that the passenger was my wife simply means I witnessed the aftermath firsthand. Sky High Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind." He turned to Patricia. "Please prepare the termination documentation immediately. Ms. Cooper's employment with Sky High Airlines is ended, effective immediately." Vanessa's face paled. "You can't be serious. Over one misunderstanding." "This was not a misunderstanding," Marcus replied firmly. "It was a documented pattern of discriminatory behavior captured on video and witnessed by multiple passengers. Beyond termination, I'm instructing our legal team to review whether further action is warranted." Patricia slid termination papers across the table. "Your airline credentials and access cards will be deactivated as of this meeting. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings from your locker." Vanessa stared at the papers in disbelief, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Her hands trembled slightly as she signed the documents. As security personnel arrived to escort Vanessa from the premises, Marcus addressed the remaining attendees. "To our passengers who came forward today, thank you for your courage in speaking up. To Dr. Wilson and Mrs. Livingston especially, your willingness to advocate for another person when it would have been easier to remain silent represents the best of humanity." He turned to Robert Sullivan. "As for supervisory staff who failed to properly address discrimination, we'll be conducting a thorough review of protocols and implementing enhanced training immediately." Outside the conference room, word had spread through the terminal airline Staff whispered about the dramatic firing, while passengers from the flight shared videos and accounts on social media. What had begun as one woman's humiliating experience was rapidly transforming into a viral story about accountability and consequences. As the meeting concluded, Jasmine and Marcus stepped into the corridor together, despite her stained dress. And the day's ordeal, Jasmine stood tall, embodying the resilience that had carried her through countless barriers in both her personal and professional life. "I'm sorry this happened to you," Marcus said quietly as they walked toward the terminal exit. "But I'm not sorry she's facing consequences for her actions." Jasmine nodded. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever been made to feel they don't belong in a space they have every right to occupy." Behind them, Vanessa Cooper was escorted through the terminal, her uniform jacket draped over her arm, her airline credentials conspicuously absent, and her career in the industry effectively ended by her own actions. 1 month after the incident that had gone viral across social media platforms, the Grand Ballroom of Chicago's prestigious Palmer House Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Fashion industry executives, retail buyers, and media personalities mingled, among elegant displays showcasing Jasmine Reynolds Taylor's newest collection, aptly named Resilience. At the center of the exhibition stood a glass case containing a cream-colored designer dress, with distinctive cola stains preserved like a badge of honor. A small plaque beside it read, "The journey begins with what tries to diminish you." Jasmine moved confidently through the crowd in a stunning new creation, a phoenix-inspired evening gown with subtle patterns reminiscent of rising from ashes. Her collection had become one of the most anticipated launches of the season, partly due to the publicity surrounding the airline incident, but mostly because of how she had transformed that experience into art. Mrs. Reynolds Taylor called a fashion editor from Vogue, approaching with recorder in hand. "Your collection is being hailed as revolutionary in how it incorporates themes of resilience and transformation. Can you tell us what inspired this direction?" Jasmine smiled, the confidence in her eyes reflecting how far she had come. "Sometimes the moments meant to diminish us become our greatest platform for change. Every piece in this collection represents barriers transformed into stepping stones." Across the room, Marcus chatted with retail executives who were eagerly competing for exclusive rights to carry Jasmine's line. The incident that had been meant to humiliate his wife had instead catapulted her brand into the national spotlight. But more importantly to Marcus, it had sparked essential changes within his own company. On a nearby screen played a promotional video for Sky High Airlines' new comprehensive anti-discrimination initiative. The program, officially named Equality in the Skies, had been developed with input from civil rights organizations and diversity experts. "The training isn't just about what not to do," Marcus explained to the retail executives. "It's about creating a culture where every passenger feels valued, regardless of race, gender, or background. We're tracking metrics on service quality across demographic groups and implementing accountability at every level." Dr. Wilson, who had stood up for Jasmine during the flight, had been invited to join the airline's newly formed Passenger Advocacy Board. His experience as both a frequent flyer and a witness to discrimination made him an invaluable voice in reshaping company policies. "The most valuable change," Dr. Wilson commented to a small group gathered near the promotional display, "is the anonymous reporting system that bypasses middle management. Complaints of discrimination now go directly to senior leadership for review." In a quieter corner of the event, Jasmine shared a moment with Martha Livingston, the retired flight attendant who had offered her contact information and support during the flight. The elegant older woman had become something of a mentor to Jasmine in the weeks following the incident. "I never told you my full story," Martha said, sipping champagne. "Back in the 60s, I marched with Dr. King. Fighting discrimination has been my life's work, first in the streets, then in the skies. Seeing you transform this ugly incident into something beautiful, that's how real change happens." Jasmine embraced the older woman warmly. "Your willingness to speak up when others stayed silent made all the difference." Near the entrance, a young black woman in fashion school approached Jasmine nervously, portfolio in hand. Ms. Reynolds-Taylor, I applied for your scholarship program. Your story inspired me to keep pursuing design despite facing similar barriers. Jasmine took a moment to review the student's work, nodding approvingly. The scholarship fund she had established following the incident specifically supported minority fashion students who had experienced discrimination. It was her way of ensuring that the pipeline of talent would continue to diversify the industry. Keep creating, Jasmine encouraged the student. The rooms that once tried to exclude us will eventually be transformed by our presence. Meanwhile, in a different part of Chicago, former flight attendant Vanessa Cooper scrolled through job listings on her laptop. The viral videos of her actions had made finding employment in customer service nearly impossible. Airlines, hotels, and restaurants all declined her applications once they recognized her name or face from the incident that had accumulated millions of views online. The consequences of her actions had followed her, just as the discriminatory treatment she had inflicted had followed Jasmine off that plane. The difference was that Vanessa's situation resulted from her own choices. While Jasmine had been targeted simply for existing in a space Vanessa felt she didn't belong. Back at the fashion event, as the evening reached its pinnacle, Jasmine took the stage to officially launch her collection. Camera flashes illuminated the runway as models of diverse backgrounds showcased designs that celebrated resilience, strength, and beauty in all its forms. 6 weeks ago, I boarded a flight as a successful designer headed to an important meeting. Jasmine began, her voice steady and powerful. I was treated as if I didn't belong in the space I had rightfully earned. Today, I stand before you not despite that experience, but because of how it transformed my perspective on what we create and why. She gestured to the collection being showcased. Fashion isn't just about clothing. It's about who gets to take up space, whose beauty is celebrated, whose contributions are valued. Each piece in this collection represents a barrier that didn't break me, but instead became part of my foundation. The audience erupted in applause as Jasmine concluded her speech, and the final models completed their runway walk. The centerpiece design, a phoenix-inspired gown, was modeled by a young woman who strongly resembled Jasmine at the beginning of her career. 3 months after the event, Jasmine found herself boarding another flight on Sky High Airlines. This time, she was immediately recognized by the crew, not because of her connection to the CEO, but because her story had become part of the airline's mandatory training program. Welcome aboard, Ms. Reynolds-Taylor, the flight attendant greeted her warmly with the same respect shown to every passenger. We're honored to have you with us today. As Jasmine settled into her seat, she noticed a young black woman across the aisle, clutching a fashion portfolio similar to the one Jasmine had carried that fateful day. The woman looked nervous, perhaps experiencing the same apprehension Jasmine had felt countless times when occupying spaces where people like her were historically unwelcome. Jasmine leaned over with a reassuring smile. First major presentation, the young woman nodded, surprised to be addressed by someone she clearly recognized. Yes, my first collection review with potential investors. Mind if I take a look? Jasmine offered. I might have some tips. As the plane taxied for takeoff, Jasmine reviewed the young designer's work, offering the mentorship and encouragement she had once desperately needed herself. The incident that had been meant to diminish her had instead multiplied her impact, creating ripples of change that extended far beyond one flight, one airline, or one career. What began as discrimination had transformed into opportunity, not just for Jasmine, but for an entire community of people fighting to belong in spaces that tried to exclude them. The stained dress preserved in her collection served as a reminder. Sometimes the very things meant to destroy us become the foundation upon which we build our greatest achievements. This story reminds us that discrimination often hides behind small actions that build into significant harm. What began as subtle service differences escalated into public humiliation, showing how racism manifests in supposedly professional environments. Jasmine's experience highlights the importance of documentation and witnesses. When facing discrimination, Dr. Wilson and Martha's willingness to speak up made accountability possible. The story also demonstrates how power dynamics can instantly shift when hidden connections are revealed. While Jasmine shouldn't have needed to be married to the CEO to receive justice, her position created an opportunity for systemic change beyond just one firing. True transformation occurred when Jasmine refused to let humiliation define her, instead channeling that negative energy into creating opportunities for others facing similar barriers. Perhaps most importantly, the story shows that standing up against discrimination isn't just about personal vindication. It's about creating safer spaces for everyone who follows. By establishing new training programs, reporting systems, and scholarships, Jasmine ensured her individual experience catalyzed collective progress toward equality. What moment in this story resonated with you most deeply? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination that transformed into something positive? Comment below with your thoughts on how we can all be better allies like Dr. Wilson and Martha. Hit that like button if you believe in standing up against racism whenever you see it. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful racism stories that inspire change. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that adversity can become opportunity. Thank you for watching. And remember, your voice matters in creating a more equal world for everyone.